Ogaga gives up everything, her one shot at wealth, for the man she loves. She hands over her only winning lottery ticket to her jobless boyfriend, Rum, so he can travel abroad and start a better life. But the moment his plane lands in Canada, he blocks her from all contact. What follows is a heartbreaking journey of love, sacrifice, and betrayal that will leave you in shock. Watch till the end, this story will haunt you long after it ends. Like this video, subscribe for more untold African stories, and share this with someone who values sacrifice and love. Ogaga stared at the crumpled lottery ticket in her hand, heart pounding as the winning numbers glowed back at her from the screen. It felt surreal. She had bought the ticket half-heartedly from a kiosk near the bus stop after work, more out of routine than hope. Life had become a treadmill of survival, rising early to catch Danfo buses, working long hours at the pharmacy, and returning to her one-room apartment in Ajagunal. But now, with those 6 lucky digits, she had just become 7 million naira richer. Her first instinct was to dance, to scream, to tell someone. But who? Her parents in Delta would be too shocked to speak. Her co-workers might react with envy. And then her thoughts drifted to Rum, her boyfriend of 2 years, still jobless despite his degree. He had been obsessing over Canada for months, talking about it like a promised land where all problems would disappear. His visa applications had failed twice, and the last rejection had nearly broken him. He was losing faith. But Ogaga still believed, for both of them. That evening, in their cramped apartment, she told him. Rum froze, eyes wide, mouth slightly ajar. "Are you serious?" he whispered. When she nodded, he stood up slowly, wrapped his arms around her, and whispered, "This is our chance, Ogaga. I'll go first, find work, then bring you over. We'll start again." It felt like a dream, the way he kissed her forehead and promised her forever. Ogaga hesitated, not because she doubted him, but because 7 million naira could change both their lives here too. Still, she handed him the ticket, hoping love was enough to carry them across oceans. "Don't forget me," she said quietly. "Never," Rum replied, holding her gaze. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork, travel agents, and silent prayers. Ogaga watched as Rum transformed, sleepless nights on his laptop turned into printed documents, scheduled appointments, and a new fire in his eyes. He was focused now, driven. With the lottery winnings, he finally had the means to pay for a temporary visa through a study route. "A diploma program in Toronto," he said. "Just a foot in the door." Ogaga helped him pack, folding shirts with careful fingers, tucking in sachets of gari and groundnuts, just in case. Her heart swelled with pride and hope as she imagined him walking the clean streets of Canada, breathing foreign air, carrying her dreams in his luggage. They stayed up late the night before his flight, sitting on the floor, leaning against each other as Rum spoke of plans. 6 months, he said. "I'll get a part-time job, save up, and process your papers. We'll get married there if we have to. No long story." She nodded, even smiled, though her stomach twisted with quiet dread. She didn't want to admit how much she would miss him. Or how deeply she was betting her future on this one act of love. At the airport, Ogaga hugged him tightly. He smelled of cologne and anxiety. "You'll call me when you land?" she asked. Rum chuckled. "Of course, babe. What kind of question is that?" He kissed her quickly and disappeared into the terminal without looking back. Ogaga stood by the glass wall, watching the plane taxi and ascend, a single tear rolling down her cheek. She whispered to herself, "We did it." But as the clouds swallowed the aircraft, she had no idea how quickly her world was about to unravel. The first day passed without a word from Rum. Ogaga wasn't worried, flights were long, immigration could be slow, and getting a new SIM card might take time. She sent him a cheerful voice note, "Hope you landed safely, my love. I'm so proud of you. Call me when you can." By day 2, anxiety crept in. Her messages on WhatsApp showed only one gray tick. She tried calling, switched off. She convinced herself he just needed time to settle. Maybe the Wi-Fi at the student hostel wasn't working. Maybe he was exhausted. Still, a quiet voice in the back of her mind began to ask questions she didn't want to face. On the third day, Ogaga reached out to Rum's cousin who had once mentioned a friend living in Toronto. The cousin hadn't heard anything either. That evening, Ogaga logged into Facebook, searching Rum's profile, expecting a travel photo or status update. Instead, she found nothing. His account had been deactivated. Her hands trembled as she opened Instagram. The profile was still up, but she could no longer see his photos. Blocked. She tried Twitter. The same. Panic surged like a wave crashing into her chest. She paced the room, checked again, and again, as if the apps would magically behave differently. A week later, after exhausting every contact and excuse she could conjure, reality began to settle like dust in a silent room. Rum had blocked her. Vanished. Ogaga sat on the edge of her bed, her heart hollow. All she could hear was the echo of his promise, "I'll send for you." And now, silence. A silence so cruel it screamed louder than any goodbye. Ogaga stopped going to work for 3 days. She called in sick, though the only illness she battled was heartbreak. Her tiny apartment felt like a cage, every corner haunted by memories of Rum. The chair where he used to sit and scroll his phone. The frying pan he always insisted was the best for making plantain. The scent of his cologne still lingered faintly on her pillow. It was unbearable. Saad, her closest friend at work, showed up uninvited on the 4th day. One look at Ogaga's swollen eyes and pale face, and she knew something was wrong. Ogaga tried to hold it in, but the moment Saad hugged her, she broke down. Between sobs, she told the whole story, from the winning ticket to the goodbye at the airport. Saad sat in stunned silence for a moment, then whispered, "So he used you, just like that?" Ogaga nodded, ashamed. "I thought love was supposed to be enough. I thought we were in this together." Saad didn't judge. She just sat with her, held her hand, and said, "You were in it together, Ogaga. He left you behind." Word spread slowly at work. Some offered sympathy, others smirked behind her back. Ogaga bore it all with silence, determined not to give them more pieces of her brokenness. At night, she would stare at her phone screen, daring it to light up with a call or message. But nothing came. Each passing day chipped away at her belief that it had all been a mistake, a misunderstanding. No. Rum had made his choice. And now, she had to make hers. With the last of her tears drying, Ogaga stood in front of her mirror and said aloud, "He may have left me in the dark. But I'm not staying there." Ogaga returned to work the following week with a new kind of silence, one that carried resolve instead of grief. Her co-workers, sensing the shift in her energy, stopped whispering. Saad remained her pillar, checking in every day, sometimes distracting her with gossip or helping her laugh through the heaviness. But nights were the hardest. That was when the questions attacked. Was Rum ever really in love? Did he plan it all from the start? Was she just a ticket? No answer brought comfort, so Ogaga stopped asking. Instead, she buried herself in structure, work, chores, savings. She started making plans again, not for 2 people, but for herself. Her account was nearly empty. After paying for Rum's processing fees, ticket, and leaving some funds for his arrival, the 7 million had vanished faster than it came. She could have bought land. She could have opened a small pharmacy of her own. But instead, she gave it all to love. It burned, that regret. But slowly, she turned it into fuel. She signed up for a professional development course at a small training center in Yaba, 3 evenings a week after work. She told no one at first. It felt fragile, too personal. But deep inside, she had started building something stronger than hope. She was building belief in herself. One evening, walking home from class, she passed a street preacher yelling about betrayal and divine timing. Ogaga smiled bitterly and whispered under her breath, "Even God watched him leave." But she didn't stop walking. Didn't look back. Rum may have left with the ticket, with the money, with her dreams, but he hadn't taken her will to rebuild. And brick by brick, Ogaga was learning how to become her own rescue. 3 months passed. The pain didn't disappear completely, but it dulled, like a scar that no longer throbbed when touched. Ogaga was changing. Her evenings were filled with lectures on retail management, basic accounting, and customer psychology. She had always been smart, but now she was becoming intentional. Every note she scribbled, every lesson she absorbed, was a brick in the foundation of a new life. One Saturday morning, Saad dragged her to a small business fair in Surulere. "You need to network," Saad insisted. "And no, it's not just for tech brothers." At first, Ogaga just wandered through the stalls aimlessly, sipping zobo and avoiding eye contact. But then she saw a woman with a neat display of homemade skincare products. The branding was simple but eye-catching, and the woman had a small crowd of customers around her. Ogaga watched closely, how she pitched her products, how she handled questions, how she offered samples. It clicked. She could do this. Maybe not skincare, but something. Her mind lit up with possibilities. She thought about the pharmacy job, the things customers often asked for but couldn't find. Herbal teas, natural supplements, local remedies with modern packaging. A niche. That night, Ogaga opened a fresh notebook and started planning. She listed product ideas, thought of brand names, and even began sketching a simple logo. She hadn't felt this kind of spark since before Rum left. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was vision. She paused for a moment, her pen hovering in the air. She thought about Rum, not with longing, but with clarity. If he hadn't left, maybe she'd still be waiting. Still shrinking herself into someone else's dream. Now, she was chasing her own. And this time, no one was holding the ticket but her. Ogaga's idea bloomed into action. She started small, just a few herbal teas and immune boosters repackaged with clean, minimalist labels. She pitched the products to customers she'd grown close to at the pharmacy, and to her surprise, people bought them. Saad helped design a simple Instagram page, and orders trickled in. It wasn't much, but it was hers. One Sunday afternoon, while restocking her supplies, she received a message request on WhatsApp. The name made her heart freeze, Rum. She stared at the screen for a full minute before opening it. "Hey Ogaga. I know I have no right to message you, but please hear me out." The words blurred as a storm of emotions returned, anger, confusion, disbelief. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, but she didn't respond. A few minutes later, another message came in. "Things didn't go as planned. Canada is tough. I made some mistakes. I've been thinking about you." A laugh escaped her lips, dry, humorless. "Thinking about me?" After blocking her, disappearing without a word? The nerve. She closed the chat, but her peace was rattled. That night, she lay awake wondering what he wanted. An apology? A second chance? Or worse, money. Saad was furious when she told her. "He thinks he can crawl back because he's suffering now. Don't you dare let him in." Ogaga didn't reply right away. She didn't know what she felt, closure? Pity? Or a strange, unfamiliar power? For once, Rum needed her. But she no longer needed him. She didn't block him. Not yet. Instead, she typed one line and hit send. "I hope you find whatever it is you lost over there. But I'm not waiting anymore." Then she muted the chat and turned her phone off. The past had knocked, but she had finally learned how to shut the door. By the end of the year, Ogaga's small venture had evolved beyond her wildest expectations. She no longer worked behind the pharmacy counter. She had quit 2 months ago, leaving on good terms, her head held high. With a loan from a women's microcredit group and a little help from Saad, she opened a modest shop near a busy junction in Yaba. The shelves were lined with herbal teas, natural supplements, skincare oils, and her new favorite product, Ori Gold, a whipped shea butter blend that quickly became her bestseller. She called the business Niger Roots. The name was her declaration, a blend of identity, pride, and power reclaimed. Customers came in curious and left satisfied. Word spread on social media. A lifestyle blogger featured her on a weekend post. Her followers jumped. Orders doubled. She hired a part-time assistant and signed up for a small business mentorship program. Every new step was a reminder, she wasn't just surviving, she was building. One evening, while closing the shop, Ogaga sat by the window and looked at the glowing city lights. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Rum. He was persistent now. This time, it was a voice note. She didn't listen. She simply deleted it. She remembered the day she handed him the ticket, remembered the faith in her eyes. That version of herself was gone, but she didn't grieve her. That girl had been brave enough to give. The woman she had become was wise enough to walk away. Ogaga stood, turned off the lights, and locked the door behind her. She smiled at her reflection in the glass. He had left with the lottery ticket. But she had found something more powerful, herself. Ogaga sat on a panel at a small women's entrepreneurship conference in Surulere, invited by her business mentor to speak on starting small and staying rooted. She was nervous at first, fiddling with the edge of her Ankara blouse, but once she began to speak, the words poured out easily. She talked about her early struggles, about learning to sell from behind a pharmacy counter, and about turning heartbreak into a business plan. She didn't mention Rum by name, but her story was clear enough: trust broken, dreams deferred, strength rediscovered. The audience listened closely, many nodding, a few wiping their eyes. After the event, a young woman approached her and whispered, "Your story, it gave me hope. I was almost ashamed to start again after what I've been through. But now, I feel like I can." That one sentence stayed with Ogaga long after the conference ended. She hadn't just rebuilt her life, she had unknowingly become a light for others trying to find their way through pain. Back at her shop that evening, she pulled out a notebook labeled Next Steps. On the first page, she wrote, "Export Niger Roots to diaspora markets." Her products were already getting attention from Nigerians abroad who missed homegrown remedies. She knew the demand was there, she just needed the right strategy. Maybe a website. Maybe a distribution deal. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Rum, but this one from a different number. She opened it out of curiosity. "I heard about your business. I'm proud of you. I was a fool. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." She stared at the message for a while, then shook her head slowly, smiling, not with bitterness, but peace. She typed back one word. "Thanks." Then she archived the chat and got back to work. It had been a year since Ogaga last saw Rum's face at the airport terminal. So much had changed since then. Her shop, Niger Roots, now had an online store that shipped to customers across Africa and beyond. She had hired 2 full-time staff, rented a second space in Lekki for packaging, and was in talks with a diaspora distributor in the UK. Every goal she once whispered to herself now lived in black ink on her achievement board. On the anniversary of the lottery win, Ogaga took herself out for dinner. No fancy restaurant, just her favorite umla joint in Ikeja. She sat by the window, enjoying the sounds of laughter and clinking plates, reflecting on how far she had come, not just in business, but in self-worth. The betrayal had nearly broken her, but it had also birthed the version of herself she was proudest of. As she sipped her drink, her phone buzzed. This time, it was a message from her bank. A payment from a distributor in Canada had just landed. She let out a small laugh. Canada. The irony wasn't lost on her. Saad called as she was about to leave. "I hope you're celebrating, Madam CEO." Ogaga grinned. Small celebration. Big reflection. "You deserve it," Saad said. "Rum may have taken the money, but you took the lesson. And look at you now." Ogaga hung up, stepped out into the Lagos night, and looked up at the stars. They blinked back at her, silent but proud. She had once thought the lottery was her one shot at life. But standing there, full of dreams she built with her own hands, Ogaga finally understood. She was the real jackpot all along.